Hi, Virgo Sun and Rising. Welcome to your October 2025 Astro Update. It's Serena here. So, as October begins, we have the Sun in Libra, which is a sign that comes directly after you, and we also have Mercury there. The second house is the house of earned income and your possessions. It's also your self-esteem, your self-worth as well as your net worth. And so there could be some focus on that at this time. And Mars is going to be in Scorpio all month long. And Scorpio for you is the third house. It forms a friendly angle called a sextile. So it's cooperative. It can help you achieve the goals of that house. The goals of the third house have to do with communication. This is the house of social media, teaching and learning, and it is the house that is ruled by Mercury, which is your ruler, but under the sign of Gemini in this case. So with Mars here, you could be really intensely pursuing some sort of information, but it may be something that you are writing about as well, because this could be writing projects, for instance. Any way that somebody communicates, and of course, online we talk about blogs and things like that. But there is this kind of intensifying of focus and energy poured into that area for whatever reason. Now, Mars can also be conflict, and the third house can be your siblings, and it can be other family members like aunts, uncles, cousins. And if you are embroiled in something like this, that could be why, because of this particular transit. But you could simply be having more outings with them, or you for some reason you're more involved with them. On the 6th of the month, Mercury goes into that house as well, that third house. And so it's in its own domain, and that means that it kind of like really intensifies the function of that house. And so, yeah, maybe you are doing some kind of writing project or teaching project. Maybe you're starting a tutoring service or something like that. That would be perfect for Virgo people, actually. And until the 21st, all the personal planets are direct and not in shadow periods. So that is very helpful for launching things too. On the same day, we have a full moon at 14 degrees of Aries. And so now I'm talking about your eighth house. And this is very intense. And for for Virgo people, this is Scorpio's domain, the eighth house in astrology. You happen to have it with Aries. But I mean, Virgo people tend to be, pretty grounded and no nonsense, just straightforward and pragmatic individuals. And strong emotions and drama, that kind of thing is not you. Of course, if you have the moon in Scorpio or something like that, that might change things a little bit. But in general, you tend to be on an even keel, maybe a little bit high strung, but other than that, And so this could be particularly emotional for you. It is an Aries, which is a very feisty kind of a sign. So for all of us, it might be quite a volatile full moon. Not the same as a water sign full moon, but definitely Aries is ruled by Mars, the god of war. So there could be some real fireworks with this one. But yeah, so there might be something going on that is connected to the unearthing of secrets, the kind of like the purging of your shadow emotions. So Sun in Virgo people in particular, you may have inner planets in Libra, which make you more prone to be a little bit reluctant to express anger, for instance. And your moon sign can be anything. So, I mean, like if you have a Libra moon or you have a moon in another air sign, which kind of is maybe a little bit too detached from the emotions to really register what you're feeling deep down inside, this can be like very informative. You may, feel like something is coming up for you, but it can be a good thing. And some kind of hidden information could also surface. On the 13th, Venus goes into Libra. And on the same day, we have Pluto going direct at 1 degree of Aquarius. Alrighty then. Yeah, so Venus going into Libra is really good for money because Libra is your second house. So that's very nice. And Venus is the ruler of the second house. So it's just doing its thing, in the second house, attracting money to you. On the same day, Pluto going direct, and you might even spend on some kind of luxury item. Virgo people in general, I think, are pretty frugal and not really materialistic, even though you're an earth sign. I feel like you are minimalist sometimes, like you're more, um, you know, you're ruled by Mercury, so you tend to be more intellectual, and you don't really, a person who's a Virgo or a Virgo rising person doesn't really want to draw attention to themselves with how they dress and all of that stuff. But you might have inner planets in either Leo or or Libra, and those two signs like to live large. So that's why it's kind of hard to make a blanket statement like that. But in any case, this can be really good for you. I think you have a lot of good money mojo this month. Pluto going direct at 1 degree of Aquarius on the same day is also very interesting because Aquarius for you is the 6th house of work. So these two things could be connected here. The fact that they're happening on the same day. Maybe you get a raise. And Pluto in the 6th house, you may have had to experience something with work matters that was, kind of made you like it, kind of like a power struggle or something along those lines. And that, while Pluto was retrograding, you may have had to look at your part in this because when Pluto is transiting your 6th house, this can indicate that the person wants to be in a position of power in their workplace. And if so, that can lead to other people, like coworkers, for instance, getting a little nervous about that. If this had to do with health, Pluto in the 6th house can be a time when the person is going through intensive healing or maybe wants to become a healer because this is the house of work in addition to health. And maybe when Pluto was retrograde, you realized that the healer had to be healed themselves. It's like sometimes people want to do things, but they have to practice what they preach. And maybe you had to go within more about health issues to try to make sure that you're consistent with that while you're, instructing other people or training to do so. On the 21st, we have a new moon at 28 degrees of Libra. So that will be in that second house of earned income. And that could be new opportunities for you to make money, or maybe again, you might be getting a raise, something where you have a new salary or a new hourly wage. The next day, on the 22nd, Neptune goes back into Pisces, which is your seventh house of committed partnership, and the sun goes into Scorpio. The sun goes into that third house that has to do with the media and education and things like that, communication. So the sun is there. That's, making that area your focus, but at the same time, Neptune is going back into your house of committed partnership. Neptune has been in Aries, as has Saturn, and both of these planets are back in the committed partnership sector. So this could possibly be if you have been on and off again with a partner, and maybe you have you're on again with this person, but there is a feeling of more realism when Neptune is retrograding. You may feel disillusioned about the relationship, but there still is something that needs to be closed. Like, what do they say? Closing, cutting off tying up loose ends. Oh my gosh. Do you ever listen to people in videos and they're like doing what I just did, and you're like almost like yelling out, "It's this," Because that's how I felt. I was like, couldn't think of what I was wanting to say. But anyway, yeah. I mean, that could really be how it plays out for you, because both of these planets are going to be back in Pisces, which is the last sign of the zodiac, for the rest of this year. They're both going to go direct, which means that when they're in the forward movement, it isn't going to be going over old ground. Now you're going to be like getting ready for the exit of it from Pisces forever in this cycle. But I don't know. I think Saturn goes back into Aries in February, but I'm not quite sure on that. I do know that they're both going back into Aries in 2026 in the earlier months. So yeah, it's very important when you have these two planets in your seventh house that if you have been dealing with a relationship, that you are willing to see it as it really is. Saturn will help with that, but the issue is that Neptune tends to want to idealize things, and Neptune is this believer in unconditional love because it's a very spiritual type of influence. But there's also quite a tendency with Neptune and Pisces to be over idealizing things, and escapism, unreality, all of those can be the shadow sides of Neptune. And the sun, like I said, is in that third house. And then on the 29th, Mercury goes into Sagittarius, which is the fourth house of home and family. If you have been like wanting to sell property, Mercury can be sales. I mean, you might be speaking to a realtor, or advertising your home that is going up on the market. The new moon in Sagittarius that will fall in this house will be right before the winter solstice on the 19th. So that would be a couple of months away, a little bit less than 2 months, right before Christmas. You could be reaching out to your mother and speaking to her more, or if the fourth house represents your father, you could be speaking to him more often. You could be thinking about your childhood. That's the fourth house. And certainly with that full moon in the eighth house, something may have come up for you that was a deeply buried trauma or emotion that you need to process and integrate. And maybe this is, you thinking about whatever that thing was that came up, and it's making you aware of so much. It really boggles my mind. The people I've heard more than one person talk about how they had repressed memories, and sometimes those repressed memories don't come out until like they might be in their 30s, but definitely well into adulthood. And I remember one woman who was abused as a child. It might have been like sexual abuse. That's what I'm thinking, something like that, who repressed that trauma. And when her daughter got to be that age that she was when she got abused, all of a sudden all these memories started flooding back. And I think, one reason why is maybe she looked at her daughter and she saw herself. And then she realized, wow, this happened to me. And maybe even anxiety around her daughter's well-being, and, being overprotective and those kinds of things. So it's so important to really be aware of the things that we have lived through, because they can control people at a very subtle level. And some people have no clue that they might have a little bit of a clue that there is something that they're not consciously aware of. So anyway, this could be like you reliving something, or just simply if it was a good thing that happened. Maybe you're getting very nostalgic, because certainly Cancer rules the fourth house of home and family, and it can be a very nostalgic kind of a vibe too. Okay, that's what I have for you, Virgo. I hope that you enjoyed this and resonate with it. If you'd like a private reading, please click on the link below. I have all kinds of readings and package deals. Thanks for listening. Have a great month. Take care. Bye.